Welcome to the Nerds and Friends podcast. Today we have our awesome guest, Trevor Valle, joining us. My co-hosts, Carey DuVal and Will Shaw, are here. We're very excited to have you on today, sir.
Oh.
Hi.
Hello.
Breathing a little hard from a nearly unfortunate tea accident, but I'm here. I'm alive. Nothing's burned. All good.
Excellent.
Yeah, we were talking about before the podcast started that Trevor decided to make an electric bomb in order to supercharge his ability to make rooibos tea. So
yeah, that was there was a moment there that was science fact. Water turns immediately to steam at a certain temperature. And when you forget that your electric kettle's readout and temperature gauge is in Celsius, and you set it for boiling or near boiling Fahrenheit, bad things happen. The more you know.
We're very glad you're okay and that nothing was destroyed or in this incident.
Nothing blew up. The super cheap kettle is fine. The mug is thankfully steel. No, everything's good.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
welcome to it.
It's been a day.
I think Carey has our first topic question. I love that he brought this up. So Carey, you want to lead us in?
Oh yeah, hot seated. Okay, so podcast is Nerds with Friends. I love. I've been trying to find a way to phrase like this question, but what makes you a nerd for paleontology or whatever subject that you're interested in? What is the thing that what about that puts the cream in your coffee?
Wow. I mean, one, how can you not be a nerd and be a paleontologist?
Yeah,
good answer.
Like it wasn't the career I chose when I was a child. I kind of sideloaded into paleo in a really weird way. I'll get to that, but we only have a half hour.
We can go over if you want.
That's up to you. I talk and gesticulate a lot and tangent like I'm doing now. Anyway, nerd paleontology. I dig up dead shit. Can I curse on this podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I dig up dead shit for a living, or for at least a part-time living. I'm in. So what I do specifically is called mitigation paleontology. Okay. What that is there's a certain series of local, state, and federal laws that protect fossils when they're being uncovered. Specifically here in California, we have state laws that do it while there is construction work going on. Same with biological monitors, making sure in environmental areas they don't drive over desert tortoises or disturb an endangered bird nest, or archaeological or tribal monitors that find the icky people shit. Sometimes literally. I deal with the 11,000 plus year old really neat stuff. Here in California, it's primarily Ice Age material, and I used to manage the lab at the La Brea Tar Pits. So I'm kind of very uniquely twisted toward the whole Ice Age thing. So I get a lot of work here in California. I'm currently at Redacted Project, can't tell you, but I'm in a 40-foot deep hole finding Ice Age mammal remains.
Wow.
The thing that makes me a nerd about it the biggest time is like, it could be a camel skull from like a Western camel, Camelops cisternus. It could be a Mammuthus columbi, like a Columbian mammoth tusk, or it could be a woolly mammoth carcass in Siberia, or a strange ceratopsian, like a Triceratops relative in Utah. Whatever it is, you're the first human being to see that element, that specimen.
Wow.
Period.
I just got goosebumps. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's one of those.
That's really fucking
things.
cool.
Like yes, there may have been people at the time that a specific mammoth or Western horse or dire wolf or something like that. There may have, it's a loose may, depending on which archaeologist you talk to and when people were in North America. But when it comes to stuff like dinosaurs, no, like the closest living mammal there was like a tree shoe going, the fuck is all this big reptile shit? And like you're walking through, like, one of the best stories I have is not actually about me. It's about my colleague, Lee Hall. Lee is one of the lead paleontologists in Bozeman, Montana. And he discovered a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Wow.
By sitting on it.
Really?
He was prospecting. So we go out and we know where stuff is because we know the geology of the area. So it's like we know how to go to the Kaparowitz Formation in Montana, or the Waweep, or in out here the Topanga and Modelo formations. You know, all this different geologic eras and the rocks that make them. So he's out prospecting and he just kind of sits down and then goes, "Ow, what the hell is that?" And he sat on a Tyrannosaurus Rex tooth.
Wow.
And he looks down, he's like, "Shit." And starts brushing it away and taking out the tools and chiseling a little bit. And Chomper, I think he either named it Chomper or Nasher, one of those, but it's a juvenile T-Rex and like sat on it. The thing is, he is the first human, like evolved primate biped to see this.
Wow.
In all of recorded like human history.
And he may be, in fact, I don't know for certain, but he may be the first human to have been bitten by a T-Rex.
We have made that joke, and Lee is a wonderful human being. He is one of my dearest friends, one of my closest colleagues. He's also a major nerd. Specifically, his nerdity is Star Trek and Ghostbusters.
Oh, nice.
Like,
awesome.
Hardcore.
That's a good mix. I like it.
Oh yeah. Like it was either the Ecto goggles or the trap that I bought him for 1 year for his birthday. I don't remember, but like hard. Like also, of course, Jurassic Park. He proposed to his wife at the site. So in the original Jurassic Park movie, when they're doing the whole like Velociraptor, he's like cutting the kid's stomach kind of thing. That was not filmed in Utah. That was actually filmed here in California at Red Rock Canyon in the Mojave. Really? And it wouldn't have been a Velociraptor because those are found in Mongolia. We won't get into that. But they decided to reenact the scene, dressed kind of in costume, except Ashley was dressed as Ellie Sattler and Lee was dressed as Alan Grant. Oh. And he starts talking about, it's like, yeah, it'll cut you across. It's a 6-foot turkey. And then it'll propose to you. And on the end of this fake Velociraptor 3D printed claw, he has this moissanite, which is a man-made meteoric diamond and fossil ring.
Whoa.
Yeah, and unbeknownst to Ashley, the whole thing was being recorded with clandestine cameras.
Ah, that's cool.
I think it's still on YouTube with like prehistoric wedding proposal or something like that. But I'm just like, you fucking nerds. I love you both. But that's the thing. If you're a paleontologist, you have to be a nerd. There has to be a level of geekdom there. There are so many paleontologists that are also role players and into the tabletop role playing thing. Just like I lose count sometimes. There's paleontologists who nerd out about home brewing. There's paleontologists that, of course, like have massive rock collections and geology and random things. It's just like it's kind of indicative. Unfortunately, there is a ivory tower academia, as there is in all hard sciences, and a lot of the upper crust shitty white professors with their tweed suits and going, oh, well, back in my day, it's like, get fucked. We're new, we're fun, we're covered in tattoos, we dye our hair weird colors, and we go out and listen to fucking 80s emo while digging up hadrosaurs. Get bent. It's just, and we're into it. And I fucking love it. And you cannot separate the nerd from paleo. Not now. That is not in 2022. It's not possible.
That is the level of like intense like love for something that I like. Oh, yeah. I love talking to people about that. I got a friend who's a firmware engineer over at SpaceX, cool. And I am the opposite of an engineer. I'm so bad at math in every way, shape, or form, but I love hearing him talk about it. And just even drawing small connections, because I don't know the first fucking thing about firmware. But I'm like, oh yeah, so I'm trying to write, or I'm doing this, or I'm writing this thing for D&D, or I'm coming up with a scenario. And I've found out that it's like all these other ideas that I've had over my life that have kind of like funneled into this one thing. And he talks about like, oh yeah, that's like building a firmware process where you run all these programs you've been kind of like half making through this one thing. And it's like, I was like, this is an interesting conversation that I am understanding like what, like half plus a third of. So,
but I love that when you can, so I'm also really big into science communication. Before the dark times of 2020, I was an invited guest for the last like 5, 6, maybe 7 years at Dragon Con. Like,
nice.
Like holy shit, Dragon Con, you know, geek Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was an invited guest and speaker and all that of the Dragon Con science track. And holy shit, talk about a bunch of nerds. Amazing.
Sounds awesome.
But there's a fine line in science communication. Anyone in science can be that dull, dry, you know, bad news sharing jackass. I will not say his 3-name name, who constantly poos on fucking everything. But it takes a really good communicator like your friend that can make the association between something you're talking about and then something he does science related and makes it understandable. Just
Agreed.
going, you know, just going, oh, you know, everything in Gravity, the movie, is wrong. It's like, okay, but instead of just shitting on it, can you turn it into a teaching lesson? Can you tell us something? Don't just say the orbital path is wrong and all the debris would go this way. Why? Yeah. What's the conservation of angular momentum? What's the equation? Can we figure it out too? Just like go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the way that we can make something that is like vast that I am ignorant of? Because I love having my bubble burst. What's something how we can take this vastness and translate it into something like, I don't necessarily need experience in, but I do want to understand this in a big way. And like, I like increasing my vocabulary in a couple different ways. And I mean, hell, if I can kind of pitch it over to Will before I take over being the conversation nerd of the podcast. Will is teaching me, like I lost my hand about 7 years ago, and I used to really like drawing. I only very recently got back into drawing, and Will has been the one helping me. He showed me how to use a kneaded eraser, and just last night he was showing me how to use brushes in Photoshop that I had no idea about. And now I'm scared, and he hears me. Like, half of this is him telling me about these pages, and then me just being like, hee. Well, I'm just fucking with shit in the background, but I'm having such an awesome time doing that. That's why, because Will is our resident art nerd.
Right on.
That's the kind of thing I like.
And I just noticed, Will, that you're wearing what is the name of the company?
T-Turtle.
Yeah, I have. I have that game, and a lot of the little things. It's so good. I just saw that. I'm like, I have a mug with that on it. I have a game and a poster, and yay! I love that shit. It's so great. Oh so man, I wish I could do art. I can't fucking draw a stick figure without a ruler and a prayer.
Let me get out the protractor and
100%. Like I mean, even my penmanship was bad before I had my stroke. Now it's like I'm an epileptic chicken doctor. It's just like, and it's like, no, really, that says there was in the store. Yeah, I mean, But
no, that's it's just like the first 6 months of switching over to the left hand, and like that first form that I filled out in the hospital, I was like, nobody else is going to fill this shit out for me, and if you can't read it, send it back.
Right. It's one of those things, man. I wish I could be an artist. And I like to see that too, because honestly, so many people say, dude, Trevor, you have a great job, you fucking do paleontology and all that. It's like, you know what? One, I sideloaded. I was a biologist before this, playing with lizards. That was my main deal. So then I started working in a museum. They're like, oh, Bones, do you want to clean these? I'm like, fuck it, why not? And then all of a sudden I'm running a lab in like a world famous museum. I'm like, what's going on?
How did we get here?
It's like same as it ever was. It's like the record scratch. You're probably wondering. But I cannot for the life of me draw a damn thing. And people say, oh, I would love to do your job. I'm like, give me a weekend in a fucking desert. I will teach you how to find fossils. It's super easy. You're looking for the organic and the inorganic. It's, if it's around a bush, it's a weird looking rock that you're like, that rock looks like a tooth. Oh, fuck. And it's really easy, but I couldn't draw a goddamn thing. And I've tried. I've taken classes. I have books. I've traced and tried to work. No, I can't even do Legos without the fucking instructions. The only thing I'm good at is Hero Forge.
Ooh, Hero Forge is great. Yeah.
But it takes me 4 hours because I'm like, I can't find a good color. And the thing is, I never use the color mixer to make my own color because everything just turns out brown.
I'm just going to cycle through the pre-made colors because 100%. Those are at least there. Yep.
And my mother was an art historian. I know a lot about art. I can go on for hours about postmodernism and Jackson Pollock and all this shit. And for some reason, Dutch masters and doing still lifes. But drawing art, no, Will, I'm immediately, I'm like, you're really cool.
Well, thank you. I think you're really cool, actually.
Thanks.
So I appreciate that. That means a lot, actually.
Yeah, it's and since it's nerds talking about, what is your favorite art style? I love asking artists this because I get so many different answers. It's like asking a paleontologist, what's your favorite dinosaur? It's like, what's your favorite art style or art period?
So it really kind of just depends on what the medium is or what's trying to be conveyed. Right now, as far as animation, my absolute favorite animated anything has been the show Arcane. I think the studio Fortiche that was working with Riot Games to make that show just did an amazing job, and that the way that it ends up coming out looking almost like every scene was just painted in 2D, even though it's entirely 3D animated, and it's able to just switch between different styles. I think that's probably one of my favorite things recently. As far as visual arts, I know a lot of people like to quote some of the old masters, but a lot of my inspiration has always been a lot more modern art, Stepan Sejic, who is a phenomenal illustrator. He's worked for I know for DC. He has his own comics with Sunstone, Death Vigil. He did a series with DC of Harleen that was really well received.
Right. Yeah.
And then of course there's a lot of illustrators that I've just been exposed to from going back to my days on DeviantArt, where I've found artists like Art Germ and Komipa and of course Sakimi Chen. These are all I know they're huge names on social media, but they have been just such a huge influence on what I do. But
right on.
Even going back farther, there is the obvious influences on me of like the shows that I was watching, a lot of 80s cartoons like G.I. Joe and Transformers, and then later on like the X-Men and Spider-Man animated shows from the 90s, and
where you get really good at drawing insanely muscular people.
Yeah.
In insanely good
Dragon Ball Z before I even knew what anime was. And so like that's always been my favorite type of art. It's more than any type of historic art, a lot of just like the art that you find online from like a lot of modern artists and a lot of modern media is always what I find really just absolutely fascinating.
There is something about just like the janky shit in 80s cartoons. Like I'm pushing 50. Like Transformers was a big fucking thing. Like my license plate used to be Decepticon.
Yes.
Like behind me, my chair is kind of blocking it, but I have an entire bookshelf, nothing but Transformers figures.
Awesome.
And Decepticons are where it's at. Specifically Soundwave and Shockwave. Bitchin'.
Yeah.
But like the jankiness of those cartoons and like and the Herculoids and anything in Super Friends or G.I. Joe, or even a little later you had like the Care Bears and the Gummy Bears, the Cornell not Cornell, the 90s X-Men. Who did that? Fuck. I don't remember. Anyway, but like all of that, but then it like when it starts to get into the like Dragon Ball Z, Beast Wars, all that, I'm already fading out. And I lost a lot. Like there are people that reference like even friends of mine that reference like Rugrats and all that. And I'm like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
That like bridge to the early 90s stuff.
Yeah. And it's fascinating that like geekdom is like as a whole, geekdom, nerdity, all that is like this great big, both awesome and horrifically toxic entity. But looking at the generational span of some of these licenses is so fucking rad. Like Transformers alone, you have the G1 stuff, and like if you're really savvy, you're into like the Diaclone figures and all that, to like all of the modern Cybertron stuff, ignoring the Armada stuff in the middle. That was bizarre. But like, and you have people that reference all of it, some of it, only the original shit. Star Wars is a great example.
Yeah.
But that's the fandom menace, so we don't go there. The only one that weirdly enough, or not, like the only two that seem to be homogenous throughout is Doctor Who and Star Trek.
Yeah.
Oh, and that seems like you got like, that's like you had a formula and you stuck with it in a good way. And Doctor Who had that big resurgence when Chris Eccleston became the Doctor.
Yeah.
And then they jumped off into this really interesting like we can do sci-fi however we want concept, and like kind of keep rolling from there. And it's the same thing with Star Trek, where like even though this is like we can go forward, we can go back, it's a couple thousand years in the future, like we can figure out how this plays, and it still ends up being a fun serial concept,
right? And like, and there hasn't been, well, I mean, with the exception of Enterprise, a really bad series. Like, but everything has its charm. Like the original series is camp and pretty sexist, but not it was weird. And then the Next Generation was like that really awkward teenage phase that then suddenly became really fucking cool. Then you've got the edgiest, my personal favorite, Deep Space Nine, because it's like, oh, they're not leaving a station, they're locked in. It's super political and bad shit's happening. And whoa, religion. Okay, let's play with this.
Yeah.
And then you get into the like that's like the super edgy teenager emo Star Trek. Then it's the kid moving away from home Star Trek of Voyager.
Yeah.
But regardless of your Trek, even right now with Disco, Prodigy, the new one with Pike that I always fucking forget the name, and I embarrass myself in Star Trek Day about it. It's the I keep wanting to say All Good Things, but that's the end of Next Generation.
Yes,
it is.
To Boldly Go or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But like everyone latches on to like their favorite Trek. But appreciates it all in a whole and can reference the whole of Star Trek. The same with Doctor Who. People start throwing things out like, oh, that's the seventh Doctor, and he did this and this and this, and when Tennant was da 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 da, and now that you've got Jodie, and I'm just like, I've seen 2 episodes of Doctor Who. One because a friend of mine wrote one, and the other one because it sounded rad because it was like the War of the Doctors or something. I had no fucking idea what was going on. All I know is
I have no context. Like,
zero.
Hit me.
There's like angry trash cans that yell at people that they're going to exterminate them, and then there's like the semi-humanoid people, robot people that don't like anybody, and then like there's the guy or girl with their friend who can travel through time and is from a weird planet that doesn't exist anymore. Got it. And I'll just like
all we need.
But like the rest of it, no clue. But I'm a Star Trek fan, Star Wars fan, all of it. And I don't have a particular fandom, which irritates a lot of people, I found out. And why is that? Do any of you have an idea?
Yeah, because I've never quite understood that gatekeeping of no, you need to like this thing and that needs to be the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I like a lot of things, and that's okay.
Yeah. And like I've never really, like, before all the horrific shit, but I was never really a fan of the Whedonverse. Like I never watched Buffy. My Buffy was like Paul Rubens with the ruler. Hey, that was Buffy for me. And unfortunately, Christy Swanson. But like that Buffy, that was I never watched it. And people say it's like, you didn't watch Buffy or Firefly? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. And they're like, and you're at Dragon Con? I'm like, yeah, how many fan programming tracks are there? Do you go to Filk singing? No. Then you're a bad geek. I mean, come the fuck on.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
it's people trying to feel superior to others.
I totally understand. Because this comes to light because I personally have never liked Star Trek.
Right. And that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And like there's a handful of shit I can't get into. I tried really hard with Babylon 5.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of couldn't. I don't know why, but because I really liked J. Michael Straczynski. I really like Gaiman. It's just like the combination of the two and a couple things in episode, fucking fantastic. But I just like pieces, rad. Yep. But Lex and Farscape. Oh my God, yes, all over that. Original Battlestar, new Battlestar.
Yes. I love Battlestar Galactica.
But man, I bring that up, and people are just like, "How could you?" I'm sorry because I didn't have time.
Yeah, I have a life. Sorry.
Yeah, and then it's like, did you watch both seasons of Love, Death, Robots? No. Okay then.
Yeah.
Poo on you. And I just it's so weird how, and I find that a lot in the tabletop space.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because I mean there are and it's I fight an uphill battle in the tabletop space because I am of the grognard age. you know, the ancient Gygaxians of old
Oh,
that were playing with the white box set and the original red box set and knows there's a first edition that's a little bit different. And then second edition was like, why are you changing Dungeons and Dragons on us? And a shit ton of those old gamers are the most horrific, toxic gatekeeping jackasses there are on the planet. And I'm lucky that I found a large core group of people that are like, dude, you're just bringing fun experience. Let's go play. And I'm like, yay, 5th edition. It's rad. I want to be a tiefling or a kobold. And like, yay. Like really cool shit. Like kids, like I can be a Minotaur gunslinger. Fuck yeah. Let's do this.
Yeah. Gonna role play the exact opposite of myself and have some fun.
Right. Right. It's like I am going to be a kobold sand druid, circle of the land.
Yes. That's awesome.
Yeah, like really radical shit. But then I look and then there's like these subgroups. Like, yes, I watch Critical Role. Who doesn't? Who's in tabletop? There are some people that don't.
I haven't seen it. I'm a DM. I just haven't gotten around to it, you know?
No, how could you?
Well, no, yeah, but
I don't have time.
That's fine.
This podcast is over. No.
Yeah, Will just leaves the podcast.
My D20 curses you. No. And there's a huge dichotomy. It's like you're a fan of a company that was started by a bunch of friends. Now it's like, understand it. Yes, they got together for Liam's birthday to play D&D and they had fun. And then one day one of their guests, you know, guest players went, hey, I have a web show. You should stream this. And then in 2022, there's a fucking cartoon.
Still need to watch that. The first 3 episodes are out and I'm extremely excited.
Yeah, it's rad. But like the main tenement that Matt says every fucking week is make sure to love each other. And yeah, they've slipped up here and there. They've had people that with the organization that fuck up. But the core part is make sure to love each other. Try and make it as much of a welcoming place there is. 1, for the benefit of all of us. And 2, so we can point fingers at the shitty people and say, you were the type of person that didn't let me play at your table. Get fucked.
Yeah.
But there's this schism, even in that fandom, that it's just like, they freak out. It's like, oh, it's scripted. You can't roll a natural 20 that many times. Rah! It's like, no, Matt Mercer's bad for DMing. This, that, the other thing. It's like, no, he's not bad. He's different.
Yeah. And that's that, like schisms like that. Like it was just like Josh was saying, like, it does feel like that's a power control thing where it's like, I don't get the need to have to feel superior to something on that level. It's because that whole show, regardless of how big they are, regardless of like how much money they're making on streaming, like I started listening like right at the beginning of like campaign 2 and I was backtracking through campaign 1. I remember them being fucking astonished at how quick they made their Kickstarter, because their Kickstarter was like a couple $100,000 so we can like maybe make an animated special. And then all of a sudden,
million.
Yeah, exactly. It's like slam. And then they just like, they had the money and they could make an animated series work, which is like, that is the kind of like grassroots coolness that I enjoy with like the good parts of nerd culture that are online or in public. Is it feels more organic, like Will was talking about Arcane, and Arcane was something that was born from people like wasn't it this company making music videos like independent of Riot first, and then
to my knowledge, and like this is all off the top of my head, so forgive me internet if I'm incorrect. You'll just have to go yell at me on Twitter.
There are going to be people in the fucking comments. There always are.
Oh yeah, because but from what I understand, Fortiche was an animation studio that made music videos, and they made a music video for the launch of a new champion back in like this would have been what 6-ish years ago now, so that's 2015 or whatever. For the character Jinx in the game, and then they kind of started plotting out this this world and this backstory for the characters and for the different like areas in League of Legends, and then that kind of developed over the course of several years into this show.
That's a cool evolution right there.
That is rad.
And it's been like the show is fantastic as well. I think a lot of that is just the same thing where you have a company where, I mean, at one point Riot was a very small company of just like making this game from a mod of I think it was Warcraft 3 that they modded, because there was
really?
the defensive so there was a Warcraft 3 mod called Defense of the Ancients, and then kind of spinning off from that game there was League of Legends that had some of the people that had worked on Defense of the Ancients made their own version, and then of course there was the Dota 2 that was also made, and they're similar in that they're like they both take from the same source material. It's the same type of game, but then they kind of went off in different directions. And then from just like that small company, it just kind of built up with the different lore behind this game, which I don't think, as someone who played the game early on, I very much doubt they had any intention on making like an actual story for the game. But then it just kind of developed. And I think like Critical Role kind of had that same thing where it was just like this small little thing between friends that just kind of snowballed into this huge, almost cultural touchstone for the RPG community. And now
that's so cool.
Yeah. Now it also has an animated show.
Right. And a lot of people do shit on Critical Role because they're like, oh, it's like when the whole Twitch like money making thing came out and all that garbage, they're like, it's a fucking company. It's like, well, yeah, they had to go that route. They were forced to go that route.
Yeah.
Because when Felicia and Geek and Sundry and all that, they were just a show on Geek and Sundry and all that, but they were starting to get so big that it was impacting Geek and Sundry.
Yeah, you were sucking away from the rest of the channel.
Yeah, and at that point, in order to what is now like 34 episodes of content from everything past that, we're gonna have to like make sense and do a DBA at first and then get an LLC and become a whole thing in order to save what we're building. Apparently we have fans. We have to do this the right way.
Yep.
Because if people buy shit, we have to report taxes. They have to do it legally and all of that. And then that just snowballs until like, oh, hey, you're all really cool and there's a lot of people. Maybe some of you want to kick toward a show.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. And everyone's like, they make 1 point, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah. And they employ fucking 45, 50 people, professional production, professional tech, all of this shit. They've got handlers, they've got lore keepers, they've like Danny, they've like it's not just 7 people or 9 people plus guest stars. It's an army of folks,
I think,
plus a foundation. Like and people always miss that, and like, good for fucking them. They struck at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that are trying to do that exact same thing.
Yep.
And you just can't.
Yeah.
Like I was approached as like a handful of people to possibly start to start some content on a video group that I'm with, FreeForge, Who, by the way, if you haven't seen it, Wednesday nights, Stay Alive. It is a post-apocalyptic zombie RPG completely created by scratch. New system, the whole thing. It's coming up to the season finale in like 3 or 4 episodes, but they're starting to put the older episodes on YouTube.
We'll put a link to that in the description of the podcast so people can check it out.
Holy fuck. I'm in charge of one of the NPCs on the show, loosely in charge. Like I give Deej, who's the developer, the storyteller, one of the heads of the Discord and all that. He asked like, well, what would this guy do in this situation? I'm like, oh, this, and this. And if it comes up, cool. If it doesn't, rad. And it's so not only is it a new system and a show, it's also an alternate reality game on the Discord. Where agents are posting shit in code and like cryptography, and you have to break it, and you have to send up a signal with like a GIF or an emoji. It's like this whole thing happening in 3 different realms, and it's wild.
That's awesome.
Collective authoring at its best,
right? And they asked me, they're like, if you were to do a show, what would you do? I'm like, well, I've been working on a home world in High Fantasy 5th edition for the last 2 years. My home game that I have every other week is kind of like I would say the session 0 for the world. Yeah. And then I've refined it and created its own thing. And as I'm having a discussion with them, I suddenly realize, I'm like, wait, I don't know how to monetize this. I have no idea how to use OBS or Sirenscape. I don't have a Stream Deck. I mean, fuck. My computer is an HP Series 1 800 like office desktop. I got off Amazon for like $400 refurbished.
Nice.
Like I had one of those crank start kind of like just like, all right, let me just hook up the car battery.
Yeah, the video card in is like an Intel HD 530. Like I just found out that it's just good enough to run Age of Empires 2. And I'm fucking stoked about that because I've never played it. And like I joke on stream that it's like the hamster is like just running and I keep feeding it crack in order to keep the computer going. Like, and I have no capability to do any of this shit. I have no idea how to use any of this shit. So if one of the production people gets sick, can't make the stream, anything like that, I don't know how to set overlays and scenes in OBS and all this wild shit that people keep talking about. I have no idea how to do that. So I did the smart thing and I pulled out. I'm like, look, I know I've got the chops to be a kick-ass fucking DM. And I will bring a new field, not a Mercer field, not a B-Day field, none of that. I will bring my own table to life, not a fucking problem.
Yeah.
But I don't use Foundry. I don't use Roll20. It's like D&D Beyond for the character sheets, Owlbear Rodeo if we need a fucking battle mat.
That's what I do. I love it. Yes.
and use physical dice, please. Yes. If you don't have physical dice, do the roller on D&D Beyond. Done.
Yep.
So I pull out and they keep at, they're like, no, we've got people that can do it. It's a learning curve, but you can do it. I'm like, no, listen to me. I don't have the chops. This isn't an imposter syndrome thing. This isn't that. I do not, you ask me, how would we monetize this? I have no fucking clue. I don't have a core of like when it comes to Critical Role, I don't have a core of professional voice actors that have been doing this a long fucking time that have an idea of how the industry works and all of that. So I
and a good chunk of whom are directors and like too, like
Sam Riegel.
You've been that bridge, so.
And you've got people that have done merchandising and shit like that before. And yes, there are people. I mean, there's an awesome amount of people in FreeForge that do all that, but a lot of the other people that are being considered have streaming. Like, I don't even have my own fucking Twitch channel.
Me neither.
Like,
I haven't figured it. I'm like, I don't know what Twitch is really.
Right.
I just
or
outed
YouTube.
myself as a bad nerd.
Yeah, I'm on other people's YouTube things. I'm not on my own.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'll be a player and I'll fucking kick ass as a player because I never get to play. I play every other week on -2 Charisma's game, but that's it. And we have like an average of like 17, 18 viewers. Like, fuck yeah, it's a great game though. Oh my god, it's so good. We played last night. I'm like,
That's awesome.
I think between the three of us, we all like have characters in each's different worlds.
That's rad.
Did I tell you I'm a writer? That I retired from the army to be a writer, and words are a thing.
No, I didn't know that. That's fucking rad, dude.
Gary's a great writer.
He is a very good writer.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Nothing published yet. I'm working on it.
That's okay.
I was working on it right before this.
Eventually,
I've been in the tabletop role-playing sphere for 40 fucking years, and like did some little stuff like game reviews here and there, like a Dragon magazine errata here and there, just like little shit. But that's it. But now I can officially say I am a campaign setting writer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
I am the paleontology consultant and dinosaur creator for the Pangea 5th edition campaign setting from Atlas Games.
Ooh, awesome. That's awesome.
It is stone punk. We're calling it.
I love that.
All right.
Primeval prehistoric 5th edition.
Okay.
This isn't you all start in a tavern. This is you're all members of a tribe and you're starving. Metal doesn't exist. There is no number beyond 9. Writing is prohibited.
Whoa.
Various shit like this, or else the dark hounds come and take you away. The ancient gods are these primeval monsters. Druids suck the life from the land and are hunted.
Ooh.
Instead of Aarakocra or lizard folk, you have the Saurians, who are like the clubtails or the leatherwings, who are like dinosaur, like bipedal dinosaur people.
Can we play now? This sounds amazing.
It is. So it was a very successful Kickstarter. I was a stretch goal and they fucking nailed it. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
Cool. They're like, yeah. So you're designing 10 dinosaurs and here's your deadline. I'm like, fuck. Well, good thing I already work on stat blocks for realistic dinosaurs because goddamn the D&D dinosaurs suck.
Yes, I've noticed that.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, the ones that are rules as written, I'm like, no.
It's like a Tyrannosaur. Ooh, it's like what, challenge rating of 6 or 8 or something like that.
It's not great.
Yeah, and it's like, makes 2 attacks. It bites or uses its tail. It can't use both. It's +8 to hit. And it's like one line of text into the description. Large predatory dinosaur can kill and eat anything smaller than it. Whoop-de shit.
Yeah.
A Tyrannosaur is 42 feet long, weighs 9 tons, and has a bite force that can literally bite a cow, bones and all, in half.
Wow.
It has a terrifying roar if you go to like pop culture. It can use its body to hit things. It can stomp on shit.
Oh.
So I make dinosaur stat blocks that reflect that.
That's awesome.
Fearsome bellow. Everything within 120 feet has to make a wisdom saving throw or be frightened.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Stomp attacks. Savagery. If something has lost half of its hit points, it can make a bonus bite attack as a bonus action.
That's awesome.
If it kills something, it can immediately make another attack on another opponent, moving up to half its movement.
Oh, hell yeah.
I've created the challenge rating system in Dungeons and Dragons is
I'm not a fan.
Garbage anyway.
I'm not a fan. Yeah.
But I've made the equivalent of like a challenge 20, like 16 to 20 Tyrannosaur that will fuck up a party of 10th level characters in 2 rounds, that has 300 and some odd hit points, that is a massive apex predator.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And they have intelligence scores of 2. Yes, that's like, oh, so does a wolf or a dog or a raven. Those things know good and bad roughly according to the pack or itself.
Right.
They can run from an attack. Some birds, like ravens, use fucking tools.
Yes. Yeah. I've always been amazed by that.
Yeah. So my T-Rex or my Deinonychus or velociraptors, pack hunters, the Deinonychus will use its head to scuff under the log that the halfling is hiding under.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Or use its claw foot to try and snag it and pull it out. Like they ruled the planet for 125, 200 million years.
Yeah. They're not fucking around. Well, so that's really cool that you use your background and stuff like that, because we were talking about that yesterday when we were asking Josh about his book. Will is actually he's trained in Renaissance martial arts. He's a fencer, and I train in martial arts. I've done, I studied tactics, like
I'm a white belt in Krav Maga.
Yeah. Josh is a white belt in Krav Maga. So I love people that break down, like, what would you actually carry if you were in a fantasy universe? It'd probably be my big ass boar spear back here because you want something with penetrating power.
100%.
Or you bring up whenever I'm thinking, like, how would I apply basically the hit and run, what modern tactics evolved from guerrilla warfare, how would those apply backwards? Because in my head, like when I first started learning about LARPing and everything, my thought was like, well, someone who's a ranger, who's like a really proficient archer, could theoretically really fuck up some people. And so I love rolling that out and figuring out, okay, like, if I take some of these tactics, what would and what wouldn't work in a different setting? What would and what wouldn't work against, a crazy fucking powerful Tyrannosaurus Rex that is fast enough. Like, there's no way I'm fucking running. What could you do in that scenario? And I love your application to that and your ability to overlay something into something else you love.
It's really tricky to do, because how much of yourself do you put into something? Like Will was saying, when you have a chance to play a character, you're playing something you can play completely against yourself, but how much of your characters are actually against yourself? There's a little bit of yourself in a lot of different characters.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So every other Monday on -2 Charisma, I play in a game called A Sinner's Dream. It is a 1940s inspired 5th edition campaign.
Ooh.
And it's noir, but not your traditional, they're like Guillermo del Toro says, there is the pastiche noir, which is see kid and leaning against and fedoras and dames and all that. And we are a private investigation firm.
Okay.
And all that. But this is traditional noir. This is French level existentialism. Does the world really exist or not? We are put forth into moral choices that may pit the party against each other. Really fucked up things.
That's awesome.
And I play a Minotaur gunslinger.
Fuck yes.
Okay, I need to watch this. This is amazing.
I don't play the 5th edition gunslinger. I actually play the gunslinger variant from Heavy Arms, because it's a little bit better. Grit is done a little bit better. Yeah. Can use wisdom, but has the option to use other stats if you can justify it. Okay. I justify dexterity. The reason why I justify dexterity is because I do 3-gun competitions.
Oh, nice.
And you have to be extremely dexterous during a 3-gun comp, because you're controlling your heartbeat, you're running, you're placing on barricades, you're doing a lot of barricade and different position shooting, and you're transitioning from handgun to shotgun to rifle. And I purposely use a very strange collection of weapons because it fits me.
Yeah.
I use a 1911 with a Kimber 1911 with a 10-round magazine.
Nice.
I use a shortened Marine Mossberg 500, not a Benelli, not a semi, nothing. No, it's a pump.
Yeah.
And instead of everybody uses the same sporting rifle, I use a bullpup Tavor SAR.
Ooh, I like Tavors. Those are nice. Yeah, bullpup design is a really cool thing.
It's short. It's incredibly more manageable. And I have 7 points of contact. So I'm turning way better than a guy with a 16-inch barrel sporting rifle. And that's how I justify dexterity for my Minotaur gunslinger. And my familiarity with firearms goes into Mac. My penchants for, just kind of being the guy in the room with a bunch of friends that's constantly looking, making sure his friends are okay and checking where the exits are, that kind of thing, just because of my own neurodivergence I have and other things in my past. That's just what I do. So that's how I play Mac.
That's cool. That's fascinating.
The Kobold Sand Druid in an upcoming game I hope to run is entirely based on geology and paleontology.
That's cool.
Nice.
Different things like that. Like I have a Grung Shadow Monk that has a major drinking problem because I used to be an alcoholic. Just like there are bits of everything in all of my characters. Elgath the Forgotten is a Drow evocation wizard that is all about fucking like fireball, firebolt, the whole thing, because I am scared of open, uncontrolled flames. Growing up, I had such a fear of that my parents went to an artificial Christmas tree. Forest fires living in California freak the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Earthquakes, I'm fucking good.
Ride that wave.
I've been on the edge of a fucking hurricane when I was at space camp in Alabama, and I've been on the edge of a tornado. I've seen massive waves. I used to be a scuba diver, all of that. And as a biologist, I specifically dealt with reptiles that can envenomate you and kill you. Mammals, don't like mammals, not my thing. But open fire or like suspension bridges, shit like that, I'm just So Elgath uses the fire because I personally have a phobia of it.
That's a really cool way to work through that and put that in a character.
Yeah, and I defy anyone that puts backstories and thought into their characters that a little bit of themselves doesn't go in.
No,
because
every character I write, because I'm a writer as well, every character, there will be some element I can connect with them on, even if they're really different from me. There's got to be some point of connection where I can be like, this character has this belief or this event in their past, and I do too. And that's how I can write the character then. So I completely agree.
Yeah, and it could be anything from like how you interact with, like how your character interacts with a sibling is kind of based on how you interact with your own sibling. Or you have family issues on your character. Well, maybe you didn't have a great thing growing up, or or in the case of Carey, you have concepts of tactics and everything from your stint in the army and how to take care of things. Like there are uses without metagaming too much of things like that. And man, the world the Dungeons and Dragons sphere. That's why I really like what they did in Tasha's, Mordenkainen coming out, all of that, opening up the race histories and the variant humans. Yes. And hey, it's like, so you're a super muscular kobold. Add +1 to strength if you want.
Yeah, they put a lot of really good back work into the mechanics in that. And so that's something that's interesting. So two things. One, I'm like character superstitious, where if I'm not rolling well and trying to do something, then I like kind of shift tactics to be like, this character's learning from their failures in a way. But when you were talking about all these characters that like have these aspects of you, that's kind of the whole reason that I found a way to start writing a book. I made a character. I had an idea for a character, and I made him for a Barovia campaign that lasted like 3 sessions, unfortunately, before everybody was just like too busy to do it. But this.
I thought you were going to say because everybody died.
Everybody about died. I think
that's fucking Ravenloft.
Died. Yeah.
We did almost all die like 2 or 3 times, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, basically, yeah, and a couple of them were in the same session. But like, I made this character with a background that like hit me so hard, because I gave him a background that was like close to the root of my personal PTSD, and all of a sudden I wanted to expand on that. And it within like writing 1 chapter, it went from anything related to Barovia to its own thing. And it's become this interesting way that I can examine all the psychology that I've learned, and the way people interact, and the way the things that people do affect each other. And that's become this basis and a through line for a story where I like flipping tropes. And I feel like the cool thing about characters like that is it's the same thing for characters across mythologies. It gives an opportunity to like see an aspect and be able to turn it over and analyze it from a couple different angles of what makes this aspect of this person human.
Absolutely. And looking back at all that mythology, like Pericles was a fuck up. Like the grand 300 Spartans, they all fucking died.
Yep.
And there was a lot more than just 300 folks there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like I mean, in the same vein, the entire fuck up of the Persian Empire, Alexander the Great, all of these large mythological creatures, like Richard III, the Lionheart, all of that. There were there are flaws wherever you look. And I'm a huge proponent of therapy personally, because we
agreed.
But like, it's the whole thing. It's like, it's okay to not be, to not be okay kind of thing. And all the the My Chemical Romance stuff, all of that. It's like, I'm sad, whatever. It's okay if your characters are broken, people. Have a flaw. You don't always have to play, and I'm not saying that as a gatekeeping thing. That yes, there are some people that really like to play the dwarven fighter. I get it. It's like, you really want to play the gnome wizard. Yes, you want to min-max as much as you want and things like that.
Yeah.
But like, have you ever, even though it's a 1-shot, maybe it's a 5-shot, or if you just want to kind of be in the dumps a little during a game, try something fucked up and weird, like I did, a Loxodon Paladin.
Oh.
It's actually interesting, because I have kind of a character in that vein in a game that Josh is actually running, where it's this a warlock character who has like 20 charisma, but never does the talking, because she ends up just being just kind of the way the game went. Carey's character, because mostly of how Carey is just very boisterous. And she also has my character has low intelligence. So my justification is she's really personable and really good at talking to people, but doesn't know that. And so just lets this little halfling who's really terrible at talking to people, but really boisterous, just do all the talking for them.
It's very fun.
That's fantastic. See, I love shit like that, because I try and remind so many people whether I'm DMing a one shot, like if I'm doing a session 0 before a campaign. By the way, if you don't do a session 0, you're doing a disservice to your players.
I just did a video on that. Yeah, it's so critical.
Literally, that was the video title.
Yeah, do a session 0.
And like, it's okay to play a role in a role-playing game.
Exactly.
Like one of my favorite characters, and I only got to play 2 sessions with him. It was a campaign from a new DM, and it was Curse of Strahd, and I get it, but my cowboy hat from Mac has fallen over. Stop that.
Cowboy hat.
It's a bitchin' Stetson that I wear in stream for Mac, because he's but yeah, like Mac, for example, he's a Minotaur gunslinger, a literal cowboy.
Man,
what the fuck? But one of my favorite characters, it was 2 actually. I had a kobold rogue. Yes, that sounds a little typecasty, but he only took stealth and thieves tools.
Oh.
History, athletics instead of acrobatics. He had left being enslaved by a red dragon, went to a town, became a bounty hunter. That's his name, Clink, from the kind of gold, from the sound of gold hitting his claws. And all he wanted to do is travel the world and read books in libraries.
Oh, that's cool.
Because of stories that kobold raiding parties would tell of all these strange races and people. And he wanted to learn more about the world. Got stuck in fucking Barovia on his way to Candlekeep. And it's like, damn it. And he unfortunately died by Strahd himself.
Oh, wow.
Because it was the, I don't know how familiar with Curse of Strahd is, and spoiler warning for anyone that's in the game, you're going to get fucked up if you go to the winery, especially if Strahd himself shows up. He was going to be charmed and enthralled and turned into a vampire thrall. And Clink is like, no, I'm not going back into slavery. Fuck that. And charged Strahd.
Whoa.
There you go.
Because he's just like, no, I'm going to go. Either I will be enslaved and hate myself forever, or I will die trying.
That's a badass way to go out.
Yeah. And my next character was the complete antithesis of that. It was a Warforged paladin. And again, typecast, because like, oh, I'm starting like level 3 with an AC of 19. Get fucked. That kind of thing. But I played it like a fucking robot.
Oh, nice.
When he goes into, I have a Yeti X here, and it came with like software to do like voice modulation and stuff. And I started fucking with it, and I got the idea of the character because I'm like, oh, there's a robot setting.
Oh,
that's
nice.
Cool. So he's this happy, he's this. Oh, actually, you know what? Fuck it. I might as well just boot the goddamn thing because I have the thing saved. Because every time I'm doing a Warforged, I do this same thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Because I'm typecasting my own Warforged, but come on, Yeti, come on, boot, and then I want to go to enable voice.
So this is my Warforged. He's this happy, kind of a happy sounding guy. He's like, hello, my name is Series Zeroed, Unified One. You can call me Soul.
That's brilliant. Fantastic. That's brilliant.
And he's a paladin. He doesn't know how his memory is corrupted because on Eberron, he was a scholar who was drafted for war.
Okay.
His memory's corrupted, but suddenly he has this feeling toward the great crystal that he wears around his neck and manifests his paladin abilities that way. He's an Oath of Redemption paladin. He wants peace.
Oh.
But if he has to
fight, he goes from this
into entering war mode.
That's awesome.
And ascertains the threat of the 2 vampires in front.
And it's fucking fun, man.
That's awesome.
And like that is an immediate flaw in what seems to be such a base min-max powerful character. Like, oh, take an oath of vengeance. You're a warforged. You're walking in. It's like, no. He's trying to he's using his actually shockingly high charisma for a fucking robot to put people at ease, to preach peace, to like cast calm emotions, things like that. He doesn't want to fight because all he can remember is not liking fighting, and has this serious flaw. And then when a fight happens, he switches into this horrific mode. The first time I sprung it on players, in the rest of the players in the party, we're in Ravenloft. Some fight happens, and Soul's just like, no, really, please stop your hostility. We just want to continue moving down the road. We just want to do this. And he's like, no, like whatever it was. And it's like, fine. And draws his long sword, and the whole party just went, the fuck is that?
That's a brilliant moment.
And he's like, you are a messenger of Strahd. Strahd is the undead and must be purged. And it's just like the whole party's dead silent. And I'm just like, crit, slay. I'm really sorry about that.
I really do apologize. Well, that's so like getting to like take an aspect like that and really run with it it's awesome with character, because I love throwing. I am loving evolving characters in the book I'm writing by throwing shit at them that like cannot be fixed. There is no magic fix. You are permanently without this thing, or you are scarred or harmed or something. I've applied it to characters too. In one of Josh's campaigns, I created a knowledge cleric who his whole thing was he was like, he wanted to go preserve stories. He wanted to go preserve like I specifically took like Orcish and Infernal because he wanted to go to like the orcs and goblins and say, tell me the stories that are going that you wish people heard from orcs and goblins.
So cool.
And it's a fun concept. He still works for a library, and Josh threw this curveball at me. He's like, there's this fallen trinity of gods that has a cult that is stealing children and killing people and like just like fucked up shit. And the first time he ran into these guys, the character's name is Ira, walks up and is like, and is like, do you see the error of your ways? Like, do you see how we could live together? And that was like, and they balked. They're very culty. And that it was like that for about 6 months until Josh threw something at me where I was like, hey, I need your okay with this. Ira's about to go dark. And there's this thing in Tasha's where like, you can change your subclass once. And Josh goes, yeah, tell me what's up. And I went from a knowledge cleric to a death cleric, because he went from like, in order to preserve culture, I must erase this cult. And I've been able to kind of like ride that dark streak in kind of an interesting way, where I've got different flashes of both warring personality at any given time.
The winners write history.
Yeah. It's a fun and throwing existential shit like that at characters, like a changeling character that suddenly can't shift anymore, and that's how they've hidden their entire life, or even like a massively powerful character that's like, I'm just going to go protect this town until a whole bunch of people don't want some godlike being protecting a town, because that's the reason they can't go invade that town, and they go and hunt that creature. That's the kind of like learning lessons that I like. It's interesting to spin out. And that's also why I like bouncing off of Josh and Will, because, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And Josh will be like, well, I like where your head's at, but have you thought that maybe this would fuck them up in this direction, and kind of go from there?
Yeah, there's something about, about bringing in these hard choices in games, and regardless of system, Like some systems are designed for it, like Shadowrun and Top Secret, like to throw out some ye oldie ones, or anything in the Forged in the Dark role-playing system, like Scum and Villainy or Blades and things like that.
Yeah.
There's a level of intrigue and moral choices, not moral as in divinity, but like personal code of ethics that challenge you. And it brings a level of storytelling to like this really, and it's a hard line or veil to follow, and you have to have the right players or player that you're going to have this happen to if player agency allows it. You have to be careful, but giving somebody that, like, okay, now you have to make a choice. In my home game, everybody, I have a home game. It's not streamed. It's nothing like that. We've been going for years.
That's
and
awesome.
it's basically the Dragon Con Science Track All-Stars. Like Dr. Erin McDonald, who writes for Star Trek. She's an astrophysicist.
Wow.
Lolly is a teacher. Stevens, the sidetrack director, he's like literally a rocket science and does laser optics and shit. And science communicators and all this amazing and like Department of Defense, network people, all of this stuff. So I know that the stories can be really heavy.
Yeah.
But instead of like you meet in a town or you meet in a tavern, no, I started them all at first level, put a limit on what races and classes they can have. And they all started as shop owners in a village.
Wow. And
there was a festival coming. And they were in the north part of Whitebridge, where a lot of the metahumans live. And like Lefty is the orc. He lost an eye, except it's the right eye he lost.
Don't Will, Mike.
Gary's
my D&D Beyond handle is Lefty the half orc.
Right. So Lefty the half orc runs the feed and mead. It's like in the inn. And all this stuff, but south of Whitebridge is primarily where a lot of the humans live, because it's the one closest to Pratchett City, which is a very, very xenophobic city. It happened that every single person in the party chose a humanoid.
Okay.
Half elves, gnomes, dwarfs, half orcs, and what have you. So I'm like, ooh, this is interesting, because like immediately I'm like, wow, player agency has caused a little bit of a, not like an overt racism thing, but just kind of like, you notice that business is kind of lacking in your shop now, that kind of thing. And they're waiting for the festival to get more coin. And I put them to a fish out of water scenario, that the night of 10,000 moons is when the 10,000th full moon, a sapling is cut from one tree and placed in the grove by the druids, blah, blah, blah. A sky watcher from a nearby town, the my world's astronomers, comes and says, hey, it's really special. The day after this full moon, there'll be a total eclipse of the sun in a one moon solar system, or planetary system. That can't happen. It's impossible, because the moon's either completely lit during a full moon or at a new moon when it's a solar eclipse. The astrophysicist kind of got it, but didn't want to metagame it. So I'm like, you're cool. It turned out that, and there are a bunch of villagers. It turned out that he is actually an Air Genasi cultist that is not from their planet, is from a planet called Kryn, and is trying to bring Tikhisis, the dragon queen, to this world to have it either evolve with or absorb Tiamat that is stuck in Avernus. So the solar eclipse is the darkening of the sun to reawaken the dragons and open a gate for the sleeping dragon queen to come in.
May I roll for character stats?
Right.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
And like, it took like 7 sessions to get to that part of the festival. And it was fun. And all of a sudden they're like, fuck, their first level.
Yeah.
And all this horrific shit. And then the cultist goes down, the eclipse ends, but the gate rends open, and then a tall, kind of like half elf, kind of half halfling looking character with a long ponytail and a forked stick is standing there holding a glowing cube. And it's a Kender planewalker who was just trying to get home and got sucked in.
Whoa.
And that was like the opening of the big bad, the whole thing. Here is the world. Now everyone in the village is scared and fleeing because it's the center of evil and all of that. And they're like, we have to go talk to the Earth Celestial in High Mountain and figure out what the fuck is going on. And they do that. And there are a whole bunch of clocks ticking throughout the game, just like because all the clocks started in these different events that are going to happen.
That's cool.
And it's going to be really wild,
complex,
except due to player agency. And I know some of you players of mine, you're going to watch this. And I'm telling you right now, those clocks are still ticking due to player agency, i.e. them being anti-authoritative, lovable idiots, pissed off enough people in a mountain hold that the ruler of the hold forced them to do an errand on pain of death and or exclusion, to run an errand to a wizard far in the east, stopping by one town, picking the shit up and going. What they didn't realize is that the Copper Lord of Passhold is doing a trade embargo against the Northreach, not allowing any of their trade through, and is in cahoots with the wizard that if any of the shipments get fucked up, it's Northreach's fault and the wizard will attack them.
Oh.
The players are the cart that's going to be ambushed. They were horrifically under level for this entire thing. They almost died during the ambush. They finally get to the wizard's tower. And the thing is, all of them, long story short, too late. God, I love the movie Clue. Anyway, tangent. Every single one of them have been put to moral choices. So, well, most of them have been put to moral choices.
That's cool.
The dwarf barbarian was running from cultists of an evil dwarven god and found home in the dwarf community of Northreach and is now worried that the town's going to be attacked. The gnome wizard lost her family familiar and immediately did a shift toward artificer to make a lizard-like steel defender. All of this heavy shit. The main one is the cleric having a crisis of faith.
Ooh.
A cleric of Myliki having total life cleric having a crisis, does a private message with me and says, okay, Davrin's having a big problem, this, and this. I'm like, okay. He's like, he couldn't defend his friends. He went down. He was unconscious, like making death saves. Everything was really bad during the ambush. He's like, I can't protect them. I'm like, what do you want to do? He's like, I want a multi-class paladin.
Oh.
I'm like, oh shit. So you're, instead of like, fuck trying to help people, I'm going to protect them. Like, I thought he was like doing a dark turn. No, he's gunning for Oath of Redemption Paladin.
Wow.
In his eyes, he has offended his god and is begging forgiveness by
that's cool.
Putting himself to the sword. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Let's do it. And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's going to take a number of long rests before you actually have your paladin abilities. You don't get them just like that. Sorry. You're on a path of atonement. If that's the way you want to go, yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's such a cool way to do an angle like that. And like confer with the DM and be like, hey, I've got this idea and it might be off the wall, but can we roll with it? And that sounds like it makes a lot of sense for the character. That makes a lot of sense for the situation. It makes a lot of sense considering that these are characters who may or may not have figured out that they're being used as an intentional catalyst. Like that's such a cool way of doing shit.
So they figured it out, and like again, they figured it out. They went to the wizard, and the wizard's like in this meteorite metal tower and all this weird shit.
Oh,
These
cool.
strange little gnome-like creatures with face masks and like eerie eyes, like working on all this technology. And then they go and see the wizard. One of the things was opened, and the ward broke, and he's pissed and all that. And immediately they dump everything on the table. And they're like, you're being used. The Copper Lord's an asshole. Here's a message from Lady Burrell of Northreach. She wants to go in a thing with you. Da, 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 da. He's like, will I still get my materials? And they're like, yes. And like the materials are brains in jars, because he takes off his scarf. It's a fucking Alhoon.
Oh.
It is an ancient mind flayer lich.
Whoa.
Who is studying to somehow reanimate dead tissue. Because
Dr.
he's sick of being a lich.
Oh, that's cool.
And he has a rotting elder brain that is enslaved, like in the corner. All the things are gnome ceremorphs, but everyone's wearing masks because the atmosphere is difficult for them to breathe in, and they're trying to figure out why. And finally, and the Alhoon's listening and goes, "Okay, here," gives them a cast magnificent mansion for them to go into. And they're like trying to figure out how they're going to negotiate with an ancient mind flayer lich they're under level, who can wipe them in 2 rounds without calling for all the backup that they don't know is in the room. We're playing Friday. They may run into that. Ooh. And the half-orc's like, I'm going to go to the washroom. I'm like, okay. You walk in. It's nice. There's a wooden tub, a wash basin. And then you look to your left, and it's a floor-to-ceiling panel. And through it, you see the starry sky. And what looks like your own planet circling below. The Mind Flayer Lich is a Spelljammer level, and the tower they're in is the central spire for a Nautilus ship.
Oh,
he's trying to reanimate his body so he doesn't die on the travel between this crystal sphere to the next.
Wow.
So now they've uncovered the Spelljammer aspect of the whole campaign and have completely forgotten about the Dragon Queen and the things hunting
the Planeswalker
and
trying to get home. Yeah.
There's a Kender running around Iberia on fucking Wanderlust going, well, I wanted to get home, but fuck it. This place looks cool. Like amazing. Causing rampant chaos.
That's awesome.
And they just like player agency out, all that out the window. And I'm like, clock's still ticking on this shit. The dragons have reawakened, and you're playing with the Mind Flayer at level 7 that you should have been around like 12.
Yeah.
To at least have a chance against. And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, again.
God, I love role playing. What a complex and rich story that you can only achieve through collaboration like that.
Right.
I love it.
I love it. And that's the thing. Long story long. Players and DMs, please put in these things like moral choices. If a player comes to you, if you're a DM and a player comes to you and says, hey, my character's having a problem, trying to do this isn't meshing with the party, don't be afraid to say, okay, what's the next evolution of this character? Where are they going to go from here? Mm-hmm. Are we going to, is it going to split the party? Or are you going to start machinations against the party? And in my party that I was running, they were fractured to fuck. The socially awkward elf ranger played dad and got them all to fucking start talking again.
That's awesome.
And don't be afraid to put those hard choices to your player, or players don't be afraid to say, hey, my character's gone through shit. Mm-hmm. Can we take a different track with him? It's like, sure. And don't be afraid to dig into your players' backstories and fuck them up.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Carey just did that to me in a game where I play a half-elf criminal artificer who trusts his dad, who runs a crime organization. And Carey had it where my character's dad betrays me and tries to have me killed. And my character is just like, no, I don't accept it. There's a misunderstanding. There's no way my dad would have me killed. And
But he's my dad.
exactly. And
Yeah.
then in the last session we played, my dad got killed before my eyes horribly. And that's going to fuck up my character real bad.
The rest of the party's going, fuck yeah. Everybody else involved is like, oh, the evil guy is dead. And you're like, but it's my dad.
Yeah.
It's the Shaun of the Dead mom moment.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
Every game needs a Shaun of the Dead mom moment. Because it's like, yeah, like that's is like in Shaun, it's like, but it's my mom.
Yep.
And like, oh fuck, that kind of thing is so great.
Well, that's what makes it a story,
right?
That like, it's not just a story that's fun to play at the time. It's a story that feels so lived in that you can tell it again. Like,
exactly.
Like my whole basis for D&D was playing back in high school with a guy named Michael Olivier in Greeley, Colorado. Like, we played at lunch, and he had all this, like, this broad net of concepts that he just would put together into things that were fun to tell in a way. It was like you actually did kill something with a scimitar, you know, like it was really freaking cool. Josh has a lot of great moments like that in his campaigns where, you know, like and basically, like, part of that's like rolling with, you know, we've decided to do this crazy thing. For Josh's campaign, we decided to do this crazy thing, this multi-level plan. For when Will's DMing, it's hey, we all made idiots. And we are treating this like a Looney Tune.
Right on.
And it's like, you know what, let's just roll with it, you know, like, and you know, fitting tone to the story. It's the reason why things like why cartoons written by people that are so obviously nerds, that are so lighthearted, can have such hard emotional impact.
Yeah.
Because you have somebody that took something that was very special to them and they made it real in a way that in a way that a story hasn't been told before.
Right. And
that was actually really funny, because that was kind of a way of the plot of the story that I'm running was kind of influenced by the characters, because I had the idea for like a mechanic based around this artifact that they get right off the bat. And I was like, I had this down in my notes of, okay, yeah, they need like a DC 10 Arcana check to figure out what this thing does. And they're going to get that right away and be able to know exactly how to do this. And it's all going to be fun. And they all rolled like 7.
Max 7.
You don't know what's happening, but you're still going through it.
Well, my character thinks he's smart. He's very dumb.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he's judgmental of everyone else.
See, and that's the, like, in my opinion, that's, you know, and again, all of this is my opinion, because it's my table. That's how I run my table.
Exactly.
And things that work for me, even though I'm like, hey, give it a shot with your players and your DMs, may not work for your table. Yep. You may want to run it as a math game and a dungeon crawl. I totally fucking get it. I've done those games and they are fun.
Yeah.
And 100%. But like, for those that want the storytelling of the world's greatest storytelling role-playing game, tagline TM. I've found, at least anecdotally, the best DMs really kind of hang back, and they're a narrator for the characters' stories.
Yeah.
The characters are telling the story. The DM's the narrator. There's a series of bullet points. If they get hit, whatever, something else will happen. That's why it's so much fun being a DM. We are constantly fucked over by our players.
Yep.
Like,
best part.
Yeah. Like, the story is the players. The DM is like the bookbinding narrator. The dice are the plot twists.
Yes.
The levels are the chapter headings.
Yep.
It's, if if you change the focus from, oh, we're playing in so-and-so's game, to we're telling our story in their world, or my players are telling their story in Forgotten Realms or Eberron or Mystara, whatever the fuck it is, or Cyberpunk or Top Secret or Paranoia or any of that.
Or
Stone Punk with Pangea or fucking Goat Crashers, whatever. If you want to run a story, let the stories be told.
Yes.
And it seems fucking rote and basic level bullshit, but it's something to keep in mind, that like we wouldn't be doing this. Like I'd be playing Age of Empires if I wanted, like if I wanted to be the Saracens playing against the Italians and like making trebuchets and shit. Okay, cool. But I for 2 or 3 hours, I want to be a book-loving kobold who just happens to be really good at picking locks because he was part of an infiltration team to like steal people's shit, but he didn't like that, so he got away. But he really likes reading books. And yeah, people get shopping episodes. Give me a fucking library episode. Let's go.
That's awesome.
And people like Critical Bard, the way he moves, and Opera Geek Kelly, the way they move their singing abilities into their bardic characters, or the way B Dave does storytelling, or the way Mark Meir plays a cleric in Ravenloft, or like any of the big name, the entire group that does fucking Motherlands. Holy shit, the level of player and storytelling in that is amazing.
You're gonna have to check that out.
Oh, it's so good. I can't wait. They're in the process. The Kickstarter went off really great. They're in the process of getting art, finalizing the writing, doing all that. It's probably going to be 6 months to a year for the book to come out, but it's good. But like when Mackenzie DeArmas and everybody did Sina Una, that like taking your culture, your heritage, your abilities, your talents, be it tactics or storytelling or art, and bringing that in, those are the greatest fucking stories.
Yeah.
And the fact when a player gives me the honor of allowing me to give them a world to tell that story in,
yes,
that's why I'm a fucking forever DM, man.
Yeah.
That's why I do this shit. I love playing, don't get me wrong. Every other week I get to play a fucking cowboy cow. That's rad.
Yes.
But the idea that like 2, 3, 4, 6, however many people for that brief of time, a one shot or a campaign, you're literally watching a story get written. That's such a fucking rush.
That's awesome.
And that's regardless of the game system.
It is. That's why I love DMing too. You illustrated it perfectly.
Yeah, and then like call it a dungeon master trademark, or a game master, or a story. That's what World of Darkness storytelling. Like, oh, like my God, like Diana D'Amico with the Nightlife, an entire Miami-based fucking vampire game that was on Renegade. It was a limited run. And I think she's going to be storytelling a Cthulhu game like later in the month. And like phenomenal storyteller, just lets the players go.
That's awesome.
And like fucking vampire intrigue in like Cubocentric Miami. Fuck, that was riveting.
I bet. That sounds awesome.
Or like how Michaela Sims did her Mage the Ascension series with like 2 competing teams. Just like all of this like amazing shit of like it's a story, again, regardless of system. And those are the streams and everything I fucking thoroughly enjoy, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just that popcorn eating. It's like why I see Marvel movies.
Yeah,
it's just like
keep it coming.
Fuck yeah, Iron Man, Captain America are going out. It's like Eddie Izzard said. It's just like, oh yeah, fucking explosions and yeah, it's like it's great, but that's like yes, there's story, but like there's a difference between like Darren Aronofsky's Pi and like Iron Man or Captain America Civil War. They're both great on their own.
Yes.
But like I'm watching Naked Lunch for a very different specific reason, or Mulholland Highway or something like that. I'm watching a Lynch film or a fuck, why did I just blank on his name? I just had it and I lost it. Damn it.
Aronofsky?
No, Shining.
Kubrick.
Thank you. Fuck.
Old Stanley Kubrick.
Right, yeah. Like watching a Kubrick movie that isn't AI. And because Spielberg, or watching like a fucking popcorn movie because there's room for both in the sphere.
Exactly.
But know what you're getting into before you get into it. Like, and don't shit on other people's likes. Don't tell me
exactly.
Fuck. I'm sorry, I'm ranting, and I think we're way over a half hour.
We are, but this has been great, man. I mean, we want to have you back on. We could talk for hours more. This is great.
I'm not doing a lot these days.
Personally,
the whole stroke cancer thing is like,
no.
Sorry about that.
Oh, dude, it's whatever. I'm like pushing 50, man. This shit happens.
Yep.
I mean, tough shit, but hey, I'm still here. I'm still playing fucking role-playing games. I fucking love it.
That's awesome.
And I'm collecting dice, and shit's getting
I have
weird
so
at this
many.
point.
I have so many.
Have you seen my latest one?
No, I haven't. I'd love to see it. Oh, is it the big one I saw on your Twitter?
Yeah.
That giant one?
Yeah,
Let's see it.
Oh, please! This is an amazing.
This is a procedure.
Okay.
I'm about this. Let's hit it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
We got to roll that on the table yet.
Stop. No, don't roll. No, stop rolling. There we go.
What'd you roll?
Like, dice collecting is like a whole entire fucking thing about it. Like you know, like Die Hard Dice and Misty Mountain and Norse Foundry and fucking Elderwood Academy and all these fucking rad people. It's like,
I know. There's too many good dice out there.
There's too many good dice, and they all look tasty, and they've got like black lights now and like custom handmade ones and like literally half a pound solid copper 55.
I love those.
Boulders.
I've got my metal ones right here.
I actually rolled this last night in the Sinner's Dream game, because at the end of every session we roll a d20 to see where we're going to do a raid on Twitch, and I'm like, I'm gonna roll the boulder, and I did, and I dented my table.
That's awesome,
because it's half a kilo.
That's
like
cool.
Yeah, it's dice.
It's a home defense. That's a home defense dice right there.
100%.
Fastball to the eye. You roll one.
No, it's like I'm chucking this. It's like critical hit, motherfucker. But yeah, man, there's so many little things about this hobby and nerddom in general.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm drinking out of one of Barden Barbarian's mugs. Nice. Drinking D&T's Masala Chai Elven blend on a nerd podcast with a 6.5 foot circumference D20 and talking about like fucking dinosaurs I make stat blocks for.
And while brewing the tea, you did the equivalent of casting fireball.
Right. And while brewing the tea, part of science communication, I nearly reached a point of water sublimation and causing a single vented glass container to overpressurize, almost causing a single vented glass container to overpressurize and explode, instead of venting everything all over my counter. And I got away scot-free without scalding myself. So kids, learn the difference between Celsius and Fahrenheit, where they meet, where they diverge, and where they're different and cause serious problems.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great safety note to end this awesome podcast on. Trevor,
Safety
thank
third.
you so much for coming on. This has been great. We want to have you back on another time. This has been so fun.
So fun. Dude, any time. And like for people going, who's the weird bearded idiot that's been yelling for like 2 hours? Trevor Valle, hi, paleontologist, DM, geek guy. I'm on Twitter at Tattoos and Bones. Every other Monday, I play Mac the Minotaur Gunslinger on A Sinner's Dream at twitch.tv negative, spelled out, number 2 charisma, the -2 charisma group. They also have a Discord. I'm a member of the Freeforge Discord at thefreeforge.com. And I don't have Facebook or anything like that because I only have Twitter. Oh, I think and Instagram too, but I don't really use it. But yeah. Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Oh yeah,
this was great, man. Thank you so much, and we'll definitely have you on another time.
Please,
this
anytime.
So great.
I've got time.
Awesome.
I have time. I want friends.
Well, we're friends now. This has been great, and I can't wait to
nerds and friends.
I'd love to use your dinosaur stat blocks in my games that I'm DMing.
Your characters will die. Your players will die.
Mm.
I'm telling you, the ankylosaur will fucking kill things like the hadrosaurs, the Parasaurolophus, the crested ones that like and they trumpet and all that.
Oh
yeah.
Just
like instead of like, oh, they have a tail attack. No, they blow their trumpet and 1d4 herd members within 600 feet show up in 1d4 rounds.
Oh,
it's just a great day.
And it just and
that takes pack tactics to a whole new level.
That's an action. So they can keep doing it if they feel threatened, and the other ones that show up can keep doing it when they feel there's no time limit on it.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah,
that
suddenly
is brutal.
I feel like this is like a level 20 monster hunting campaign.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, it's gonna be heinous. But thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
being
being
a great time.
No worries. Catch you later.
Yeah, catch you later.